Welcome to Political Beatdown. I'm Ben Meiselas, joined by Michael Cohen. We have a lot to discuss, like Donald Trump's total capitulation to Vladimir Putin. Also, Donald Trump threatening tariffs everywhere. It's unclear what he's even doing at this point. Donald Trump also is now saying that he's blaming the fact that inflation is rising on former President Biden. Donald Trump is saying prices will go up short term as a result, but he goes, that's not a big deal. People will just deal with it. Moments ago, he was in the Oval Office. He was asked about prices going up. Let's just take a look at this. Let's play it.
Prices go up, Mr. President, because of these tariffs. Who do you think voters should hold responsible?
Oh, I think what's going to go up is jobs are going to go up, and prices could go up somewhat short term, but prices will also go down. And I think the farmers are going to be helped by this very much.
Let's take a look here as well. He goes, there could be some short-term disturbances when it comes to prices. Let's play it.
They'll do it without tariffs, and therefore prices won't go up. There could be some short-term disturbance, but long-term, it's gonna make our country a fortune.
So Americans should prepare for some short-term pain.
No,
possibly.
you said that. I didn't say that. You know?
Well, if the prices go up,
Let's see what happens. Nobody really knows what is going to happen other.
Let me show you this clip as well, Cohen, then we'll talk about them all. Here, Donald Trump attacks Canada, saying they're the lowest member in NATO. Excuse me. I mean, Canada was one of the first people who were fighting in World War II. Canada's been there at every fight by our side. Here he is attacking the courage of Canada and saying they're the lowest member of NATO. And this is as Donald Trump also is talking about Putin joining the G7, and Trump wants to make it a G8 with Putin. Here, play this clip.
We're in for more than Europe. I mean, think of it, or NATO. I mean, let's call it NATO because Canada's in. By the way, Canada is just about the lowest payer. Also, they shouldn't be. They are just about the lowest payer in NATO, in addition to everything else. So Canada's really been taken advantage of. And if they had to pay just something modestly fair, they wouldn't be able to succeed as a country. And that's why I feel they have to become a state. Yes, ma'am.
That's why I feel they have to become a state. Let's break it all down, Cohen. But Donald Trump saying that prices are not going to go down anytime soon. He says
he reversed course on that, by the way.
No one really knows.
First he says it's not going to go down. Then he says it's going to go down, but short term. It's going to be beneficial. It's not going to be beneficial for a short while, but then it will be. It's going to make our farmers very rich. I mean, he's literally all over the block on that one.
Yeah, well, I mean, the promise was, though, that prices were going to go down on day one, right? That all these jobs would be created on day one. And then we saw the inflation report, which I like how corporate media was like unexpectedly surging. I mean, really unexpectedly. Wait until you see February, March, and April's report. Wait until you see the boycott from Canada show up in our economic data. Wait until you see all of the other reciprocal retaliatory measures by other nations against the United States show up in our data. But notice who he's attacking and who he's not attacking. Like, he attacks Canada. He also spends his time in the Oval Office attacking Taiwan. Let's play this clip.
Country, in all due respect, they took the business away. Taiwan took our chip business away. We had Intel, we had these great companies that did so well, and it was taken from us, and we want that business back. We want it back in the United States. And if they don't bring it back, we're not going to be very happy.
You mentioned pharmaceuticals as well in China. That's national security to bring that back.
Yeah, China and other places. We want to get the pharmaceutical and drug business back into the United States, where it should be.
By the way, that was some right-wing media feeding him like the talking points so he could kind of parrot those back. Let's be clear, former President Biden launched the CHIPS Act to bring the semiconductor industry here to the United States. The CHIPS Act has actually been thriving and causing a resurgence in semiconductor investment in the United States while maintaining our alliances with Taiwan, because wasn't always protecting Taiwan part of our national interests from the invasion that was being threatened by China? Because I also remember the Republicans used to talk about that all the time. But it seems that Donald Trump talks about his love of Xi Jinping, but then attacks Taiwan. Let me just show you this one as well, Cohen. Here, Donald Trump falsely claims that NATO is what essentially forced Putin to invade Ukraine, articulating Putin's propaganda a day after calling Putin. Trump's messaging also doubled down on what the Senate Republicans forced Tulsi Gabbard to disavow a day after they confirmed her as Director of National Intelligence, as Ned Price puts it. Here, put this clip.
Probably good today. They're a little bit softer, perhaps, but I thought his comments yesterday were pretty accurate. I don't see any way that a country in Russia's position could allow them, just in their position, could allow them to join NATO. I don't see that happening. And long before President Putin, Russia was very strong on the fact that I believe that's the reason the war started, because Biden went out and said that they could join NATO, and he shouldn't have said that. As soon as he said that, I said, you know what? You're going to have a war now, and I was right about that. This is a war that would have never happened if I were president.
You don't think it's President Biden's fault, not President Putin? I mean, he's the one.
I think Biden is incompetent, and I think when he said that they could join NATO, I thought that was a very stupid thing to say.
He said when he said they could join NATO, that was a very stupid thing to say. He's basically totally capitulated to Vladimir Putin, which should not come as a shock. It's just wild, right, Cohen, though, all these spineless Republicans who were like, Biden was not being tough enough to help Ukraine. We heard that a lot, right? That Biden, I mean, look, let's be clear. Biden uniting the world stopped Russia from getting into Kyiv in the 3 days that Vladimir Putin promised. Russia has taken over 800,000 casualties, and because of American foreign policy, Russia's economy was suffering. Guess what? Russia's stock market right now with Trump, booming, up, 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 as the inflation numbers here in the United States caused our stock market to do horribly. But I guess, Cohen, with Donald Trump, it is Russia first. What do you make of Trump constantly attacking our allies from the Oval Office and uplifting Putin and praising Putin over and over again? I mean...
I have the answer for you.
Please.
What's going on is Trump sees our allies as weak. Canada, as far as military is concerned, he sees them as weak. Why? Because the entire Canadian military is something like 68,000 people. That's their entire military. That's their army. All right. They never had to rely upon a military simply because, as Trump points out, and he's accurate about it, they rely upon America for that type of protection. They are a border country. They are an ally. They are a friend. They are our closest friend, right? So he sees them as being weak. Why? Well, because we have 2.4 million in our freestanding military. Not to mention our military might is second to none in the world. But who's part of that next tier? Well, of course, you have Israel. They're an ally. But you also have Russia. You have China, right? You have North Korea. You have all of these countries that have nukes that Trump thinks are strong. They're powerful, right? That they dedicate a substantial portion of their GDP to military. And all of a sudden, it's almost like he's playing the movie War Games. You see, that's the problem also when you allow Trump to go and fly on Air Force One, or before during the campaign on Air Force One. They turn around, they start a movie. And all of a sudden, in his mind, he starts saying to himself, hey, you know what? This isn't so bad. Like, I guarantee you, he saw the movie The Purge, because all of a sudden, you may remember, he comes up with an idea. Maybe one day out of the year, we should allow our Americans, our patriotic MAGA Americans, to hunt down illegals right? And that way it would keep them out. I mean, this is just crazy talk. It's literally crazy talk. He knows that Italy is not going to attack America, no matter what he says. He knows France isn't going to attack America. He certainly knows Canada is not going to attack America. So what do when you're a bully? You pick on them. But you know who might start a real fight? Yeah, Russia, right? China, North Korea shooting off rockets, right? Little rocket man shooting them all off. He's not fighting with them. And again, it's the style that he likes. You're talking about like that Viktor Orban style. He likes that where somebody is a bully to their own country and they end up doing whatever it is that they want to do, which is what Donald is doing right now with all of these executive orders and a Sharpie. He has absolutely turned our country right now upside down.
The damage that he's already done is already done, right? Like, so now at this point, America is isolated. Like, we will now start to feel the ramifications when that isolation shows up in the data, right? The boycott by Canada of all American stuff, that's not going to show up in 24 hours, but the damage is done. The relationship between America and Canada has been irreparably harmed, at least for the foreseeable future. And look, we love our Canadian supporters here at the Midas.
My family lives in Canada. Half my family lives in Toronto. My father grew up in Canada.
And look,
this is not a joke.
Yeah.
They've always looked up to America. I mean, when you're sitting and you're watching these pathetic reporters who, unlike you, Ben, and unlike many of us here affiliated to MTN, the Midas Touch Network, we don't pull back. Now, people get sometimes angry at me because I say, hey, you know what? Maybe this could be good for America. I'm willing to wait. And they say, oh, my God, you're bending the knee. No, I'm not. I call it the way that I see it. I call balls and strikes if you're a baseball player. But I'll tell you right off the bat, when I watch these pathetic reporters sitting there in the Oval Office and just allowing, Trump and others that are with him to lie, to boldly lie and not come back. By the way, the thing that I found the most comical in that presser today, Ben, was they have that stupid board up there that shows Gulf of America. And then prior to that, when you had Catherine Levitt, the press secretary, sitting there and talking about how they felt that it was right to throw the AP, the Associated Press, out of the briefing room and not allow the Associated Press, which is one of the most significant papers in the world. You know, if you have an article in the AP, it goes to like 62,000 newspapers that subscribe and use AP, use their work. That they didn't like the fact that the AP is not referring to the Gulf of Mexico as the Gulf of America. And that is disgusting. It's disingenuous. It's anti-America. It's anti-President Trump. And for that, he has every right within which to remove them from the reporter pool there in the Oval Office and so on. I mean, you want to talk about making yourself look small, petty, and, vindictive. I mean, just because you were able to get Google, who now seems to be, on your payroll, and you get them to change it on Google Maps to turn around and to say it. Okay, so Ben, you and I and all of our brigaders here and all of America, we start calling it the Gulf of America. But the rest of the world is calling it the Gulf of Mexico. Who cares? I mean, that this became a talking point that took up about 10, 12 minutes of conversation in the briefing room. To me, it's not even that it's laughable. It's just out and outright pathetic, and it makes us all look very stupid.
Well, that's the bait and switch, Cohen, right? It is, hey, Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America. Oh, what a controversy. Everybody look at this controversy. And then meanwhile, what's actually going down? The prices are going up. Inflation's going up. Housing is less affordable. He's destroying all of our alliances. And egg prices are through the roof. And he wants us to focus on, oh, my God, and for his base, the Gulf of America is like, yeah, we're back. We did it. We conquered something. Okay, you literally changed a name on Google of something that the rest of the world doesn't recognize. And then Donald Trump uses that to kind of show that he's conquering things while he's backing down to Prime Minister Trudeau or President Claudia Sheinbaum in Mexico or the leader of Panama and Colombia. So for him, it quenches his bloodthirst, but also addresses his fundamental kind of weaknesses as well. And as part of quenching his bloodthirst, it's why he so admires Putin, right? And one of the things that Donald Trump threatened as well over the weekend, and we talked about this on the last show too, is he said that if all of the hostages are not returned by Hamas, that all hell is going to break loose.
Saturday at noontime.
By Saturday noontime, during a holy day as well. So while that's when he set it for. But then he also removed, I guess, any bargaining power, because he said, regardless of the outcome, he will be ethnically cleansing all of the Palestinians and moving them to another land, which nobody in the Middle East supports at all, maybe other than Benjamin Netanyahu, but no of the other countries. They're like, the president of Egypt is like, I ain't coming to the United States of America and doing what you did with King Abdullah. I ain't sitting there coming to America if you're going to lecture me about Palestinians moving to Egypt. So if you want to recognize a two-state solution, I'll come to America. But if I'm sitting there, you're not going to talk about that. And just, pissing off literally everybody in the world. Heck, Kim Jong-un, North Korea, issued a statement condemning Donald Trump for talking about acquiring Gaza. When North Korea's Kim Jong-un sounds like a more reasonable person than Trump, that's where we are right now. And let's look at it. Donald Trump says he wants Russia in the G8. Here, play this clip.
High-level people from Russia, from Ukraine, and from the United States.
Do you want to have Russia back to the G7, sir?
I'd love to have them back. I think it was a mistake to throw them out. Look, it's not a question of liking Russia or not liking Russia. It was the G8. And, I said, what are you doing? You guys, all you talk about is Russia, and they should be sitting at the table. I think Putin would love to be back. Obama and a couple of other people made a mistake, and they got Russia out. It's very possible that if that was the G8, you wouldn't have had the problem with Ukraine. And if I was president, you definitely wouldn't have had the problem with Ukraine. Russia would have never attacked Ukraine. But you ask a very good question, the G8. It used to be the G8, and then these people threw them out. And I was arguing with Trudeau and with
So Michael Cohen, that's what he said there. Let me show you too. So while Trump's out there saying that they should be part of the G7 and it should be the G8, and somehow it's Prime Minister Trudeau's fault that Russia's not part of the G7, again, attacking and blaming Canada while uplifting Putin. Let me show you what Trump has his surrogates on Fox, which is just state regime media. Yeah. And they're saying, this is what you wanted. This is what everybody wanted, right? Caroline Leavitt, let's play this clip first, his press secretary.
Again, the American people voted for this monumental change, and that's exactly what they're getting.
Marjorie Taylor Greene, let's play it.
I completely agree with you, Sean. Elon Musk is giving our entire country an inside look at the actual fraud, waste, abuse that's been going on for decades. And Americans are cheering and cheering and cheering. Everyone did vote for this. This is exactly what we voted for. This is what we campaigned for. And this is what President Trump promised to the American people.
The hell?
Yeah, I have no idea. Look, I have no idea what any of them, and the fighting that's going on between pundits, those that are pro-Trump, those that are anti-Trump, is so ridiculous when you listen to the conversation. Look, I want to be very clear about something. I believe that all Americans want to see our president succeed. And if you're Republican, you should want to see the Democratic president succeed. The same way, if you're a Democrat, you should want the Republican president to succeed. And everybody should hope that the president would be a unifier for our country, to be a unifier to the world, so that the world respects us as being the beacon of democracy on the hill, as being the big swinging guy in the room or girl. My point is, everything that we were hoping for, everything I know I was hoping for on the second round is exactly the opposite of what I was hoping for. First of all, you cannot legislate with executive orders. You cannot run the country via executive orders. But I want to be clear, something Ben and I yelled about, we screamed from the rooftops, we talked about it day in and day out on this show and all of the shows that you find on this network. Trump told us exactly what he intended to do, and he said it during the campaign. He said it even before he started the campaign. He 100% came out and said he intended to rewrite the Constitution. Now, did he really mean that he was going to rewrite it, or did he just mean he was going to fundamentally change it? Either way, it's the exact same thing. And he is exactly doing that. He did it with the Supreme Court decision. He's doing it with these executive orders. He's doing it by placing individuals in all of the key positions so that they are loyalists, not loyal to the Constitution, but loyal to him. And now all that happens is they're flooding. And you keep hearing people like Elon Musk and Trump talk about, we need more executive orders, flood the well with these executive orders so that that the lawyers on the other side of the aisle do not have the ability within which to fight all of them, and that way you get a bulk of the stuff passed through, right? And by the time that the other side wakes up and they're finally able to get to it, it's already too little, too late. I mean, this is gangster stuff. I mean, this is gangster shit by any stretch of the imagination. And who's going to suffer? We are. We, the American people, are going to suffer. And, when he turns around and he says, yeah, there's going to be some short-term, there'll be some short-term pain. Yeah, we're going to feel it short-term. Short-term is kind of like using the word normal. How do you describe the word normal, right? There is no description. There is no definition. So when he turns around and and says to you, it's going to be short-term. Well, short-term in what? The history of the earth? Or are we talking about, right? That's the problem. It's a general term that nobody can define, including President Trump.
And, look, let's just call it what it is. While the pundits, as you mentioned, are fighting with each other over, the Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf of America, blah, 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 blah. Look, Donald Trump broke every promise. The promise wasn't that Elon Musk, a private citizen, a billionaire, the richest man in the world, an oligarch with government contracts, would gain access to everybody's personal records and medical files and IRS statements and Social Security stuff, and put a group of 20-year-old dudes or guys in there to start grabbing our files and firing everybody who works in critical positions in the government. That's not what it was. It was, we were going to lower the prices. It was going to be a miracle on day one, miracle, jobs, miracle, everything, magic. It will all happen. There will be peace in Ukraine. So it's lie, 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 lie. And then there's this element of just abject, just absolute corruption of having people like Musk go in through all of our files and, and then they try to justify it like, well, Elon Musk is more trustworthy. This is what the Republicans are saying. He should have your files because it's more trustworthy than anybody else. Why would a billionaire who has all of this money do anything bad with your files? That's the argument that our Republican Party, these spineless, what, are arguing right now. It's absolutely absurd. We're going to talk a lot more about
Ben, but can I just do a slight correction on what you were saying? Trump did not lie on his promises to the American people.
Yes, he did.
No,
Yes,
No.
he said he was going to lower prices. Prices aren't lower.
Okay, and that's true. That's inaccurate.
He said
That
there would be
he
peace
could
in
do
Ukraine.
it
There was
he could
peace
do
in
it in
Ukraine.
24 hours. He made many, many bold promises, like he was going to pardon the January 6th defendants, all of them on day number 1. He did that.
Yeah,
He's gone ahead and he said he was going to rename the Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America. Why he finds that important. Lo and behold, he did that too.
Yeah,
He's actually doing a lot of the things that he said during the campaign that he was going to do. The mass deportation now. They are actually at it, and they are rounding people up, including some people who never should have been taken away and sent to Guantanamo Bay, right? The guy's an American citizen. Why I bring this up is we told you that Trump, this is who he is. And why would you wash? Why would you try to whitewash what he's saying, that he intends to do what he said, but still people voted for it. And now we are living with that repercussion. He intends to honor all of these promises that he made, which we all took as just bluster and bullshit, and that it was just hyperbole in order to rile up his base. And the answer is no. No, it's not. And I've said it a million times, when Trump tells you what he's going to do, he's going to do it. And you're right, because he has zero empathy for anyone else. He turned around and he said that he was going to do X, Y, Z, and he is out there and he is doing it. And where did he get all of that stuff from? Project 2025.
Well, and look, I'll say it this way too, though. The narrative that was out there were his promises about the economy, while the media sane washed the things that you were talking about.
Yes.
Well, so there's a dichotomy there, right? As it relates to the January 6th insurrectionists, you and I would say, hello, everybody. You do realize that he's replaced the national anthem with the J6 choir song, and he calls them hostages and patriots. So that's an example where the corporate media was like, oh, that's just Trump being Trump. Or Trump did talk about abolishing the Department of Education. He did talk about tariffing everybody. He did talk about being a dictator on day 1. And we said, hello, he's using the language that sounds very much like dictators, and he's saying he wants to be a dictator on day 1. Maybe you should focus on that. So let's be clear. He did say those things. He is doing those things. The prevailing narrative, though, that was out there, Cohen, was that he was going to, even though former President Biden had a stock market that was breaking records every day, bringing inflation down, that was caused by Donald Trump adding $8 trillion of debt to our country, all of the havoc Donald Trump caused during the first administration, during COVID, by just not even dealing with COVID and saying, like a miracle, it was all going away. Despite the 16.4 million jobs that former President Biden created, the prevailing narrative, which didn't meet the objective data, was by the media saying we were in economic shambles. This is what the prevailing narrative was. You would have thought from watching the media, how they covered Biden and Trump, that we were suffering a Great Depression. The Great Depression was the mental mush from the rage algorithms that were created by disinformation echo chambers, because the objective data reflected actually a manufacturing boom, prices going down because of the Inflation Reduction Act, jobs going way up and setting records. That's what the reality was. But Donald Trump's lies were, I'm going to make prices and gas prices and egg prices. That's what they focused on. Magically better on day 1. They are worse, and it's only getting worse and worse and worse. But I want to talk about in the next segment the resistance that's growing. We're going to cover here the protests that are taking place.
Stay with us, because we are. That's what Ben and I are trying to do. We tried before. We know our brigaders caught on. The problem, though, is 77 million Americans bought into the bullshit. And here, on this network, on this program, you're not getting bullshit. Raw, unfiltered facts.
I want to remind everybody, you can see by people who are watching this tomorrow or on audio, we will probably have hit 4 million subscribers, but we're just a few thousand away right now from 4 million subscribers on the Midas Touch YouTube channel. So it's actually possible we hit 4 million subscribers on this live right now. So everybody make sure you subscribe. Also, then let's get Cohen's YouTube channel at The Michael Cohen Show up with those numbers as well. Subscribe there as well. We have a quick short break. We'll be back. Make sure you hit subscribe. We'll see you after a very quick break. Let's play it.
When your car breaks down, you take it to a mechanic with no hesitation. I mean, you need it, and it's not something most guys can fix themselves. Look, I know I can't, and men should think the exact same way about ED. But the reality is, you might be hesitant to seek help. Well, thankfully, through HIMS, you can get access to personalized ED treatment without ever stepping outside your door. HIMS is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort, get a load of that, of your own couch. HIMS provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable Hardmints and Viagra and Cialis and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. You hear that? 95% cheaper. The process, it's also 100% online, so that there's no need for uncomfortable doctor visits. What you do is you just answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option. And if prescribed, your medication, well, it ships directly to you for free. And there's no insurance needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. Now, with hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, HIMS can help you find the ED option that works best for you. So start your free online visit today at hims.com/beat. That's HIMS.com/beat for your personalized ED treatment options. Again, that's hims.com/beat. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required, and price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Gotta love every time you do that HIMS ad. I mean, if I were HIMS, don't take my advice. I would make you reading that their national campaign
They
that
should.
they just put out there. A Super Bowl ad of you talking about all that stuff would have been great. I mean, I just think people would have been like, "What? Michael Cohen, HIMS? I have so much emotions wrapped up into this ad read." And then, anyway,
By the way, so you brought up my YouTube channel, The Michael Cohen Show.
Yeah.
And I want to say, thanks to your brother, I finally received my what do you call it? My
plaque.
little plaque here from YouTube. All right. The funny thing is that's when I hit 100,000 subscribers. We're now at almost 270,000 subscribers. So a little bit too little, too late, but very well appreciated. And thank you to all of you who subscribe to the show.
Look, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in Canada is leading like a wartime president there. There's real momentum in Canada around the Liberal Party and its ability to form a government. A few months ago, if you would have asked people, they would have told you that Pierre Poilievre, who runs the Conservative Party in Parliament, who's like MAGA Maple, they would have thought that guy would have won and become the next prime minister, and there would have been a Conservative Party coalition. Well, now whether you're talking about Mark Carney or there's a deep bench of potential people who could fill that role as the leader of the Liberal Party. Many are projecting that the Liberal coalition standing up to Donald Trump is going to prevail. There's a massive boycott underway in Canada of everything America. It's like a scarlet letter if you're in Canada to travel to the United States unless you're basically forced to. And at all of the supermarkets and stores in Canada, they label things like made in Canada, and then the American stuff is pushed to the bottom shelf. So one way we are seeing a resistance outside of just reciprocal or retaliatory tariffs is these organic grassroots economic boycotts and isolation of America. And you can't blame Canada. I mean, Donald Trump's out there saying the most demeaning and disgusting things about them every day. Also, with Donald Trump gutting and destroying all of our government agencies and apparatus, doesn't seem like a day goes by where there's not like a plane crash or like a boat crashing into I think today a naval ship crashed into another ship. Fortunately, there were no injuries. 2 weeks ago in Delaware County, a train caught on fire. It's only going to get worse because Trump's gutting all of these government agencies. We're right now, I mean, do we even know if we're getting the right data about the flu outbreak? The most flu cases like in recent history and flu deaths, H5N1. So it's like, if you're in Canada, you're like, I don't even know if I can be here in the United States, even if I wanted to go, but they don't. So we're seeing that in Canada, across the world as well. And then we're seeing the protests start to form here, all of the cases that are being filed against Donald Trump. We saw in court or in the judicial system, federal judges who have been standing up to Donald Trump. And then one of the things we also saw in the Southern District of New York, some of the federal prosecutors who were asked to dismiss the Eric Adams case, mass resignations out of SDNY. And then the Department of Justice tried to transfer the Eric Adams case to Maine Justice within DC, which is just unheard of for Maine Justice to slap SDNY like that. But then Maine Justice also said that, some of the Maine Justice lawyers started resigning as well when the case got transferred. So you are seeing out on the streets some lawyers' resignations and international boycotts. Let me show you this. Prime Minister Trudeau saying not a snowball chance in hell that we'll ever become a 51st state. Let's play it.
I've said unequivocally from the beginning, there's not a snowball's chance in hell that Canada will ever be the 51st state.
I think I have a longer clip of that one as well. Jeremy, if we could play it.
You previously said that it's a real thing that Trump wants to annex Canada. How serious or urgent would you classify that threat?
Let's be very clear. Conversations around a 51st state are a non-starter. It's never going to happen. But we have to take seriously what the president is saying and fold that into our thinking as we continue to stand up for Canada.
And then, Cohen, I want to share with you here Pete Hegseth, former Fox News host, current former Fox News host, current Secretary of Defense. This just shows you why experience matters, and his lack of experience and his parroting the Trump talking points, just how dangerous it is. Here, play this clip.
We want, like you, a sovereign and prosperous Ukraine. But we must start by recognizing that returning to Ukraine's pre-2014 borders is an unrealistic objective. The United States does not believe that NATO membership for Ukraine is a realistic outcome of a negotiated settlement. Instead, any security guarantee must be backed by capable European and non-European troops.
Well, in Europe, that sounded also a ton of alarms because they were not consulted about that announcement. And basically, when Hegseth says we're going to start with the premise that Ukraine cannot get its territory pre-2014 and can't become a member of NATO, well, that's the kind of main negotiating points that kind of exist. And so what are you negotiating at that point, right? What's the deal when you've just announced to Putin that you're giving Putin literally everything? And by the way, when you talk about what Donald Trump is doing with the hostages and the ceasefire that former President Biden negotiated with Hamas, when Donald Trump says that no matter what the outcome of whether you return the hostages or not, we are making sure that Israel controls all of the land, or America apparently will be the owner of Gaza, then how are you going to negotiate for the release of the hostages when you've already made the effort?
You know what we're living through right now, my friend? You know what we're living through? We're living through what's called reality. Reality in the fact that when Trump tells you that he could do it in 24 hours, how many things did you hear him say that can be done in 24 hours? 2 dozen? 2 dozen things that take anybody, years. He talks about how by putting these tariffs now on Canada, on Mexico, on China, on every country now, every single country, there will be a tariff if there is a tariff on us, whether it's a VAT or a tariff or any sort of tax on American products going in or coming out. It doesn't make a difference. An equal, retaliatory, reciprocal tax. And what does he turn around and tell us? He tells us that this will bring manufacturing back to America. Sounds plausible to me, right? If I had a company and I wanted to avoid this, incredibly expensive tariff or tax, whether it's 25% or 200%, sure, I'm going to build a factory right here in America. Well, you really believe that bullshit? Because I don't buy it for a second, and here's the reason why. Let's assume, as Trump likes to talk, it has to do with the automotive industry, that he doesn't want to see cars manufactured in Mexico any longer. He wants them back here in America to be manufactured. There's only one problem. You got to build the plant. Anybody have an idea how long it takes to build an automotive plant? Think about that for a second. See, Trump, it's easy just to say, fuck it, I could do it in 24 hours. In 24 hours, we'll have everything back. And they're going to start manufacturing cars here in America. Well, we do manufacture cars in America, just not the number of cars that are being manufactured, whether it's in China or Mexico or Canada or wherever. All right? They have their plants already established. They're producing, and some of those cars are coming here. So when he says that he's going to build, or that these companies are going to build, this isn't like opening up a phone center or a Google center where you're just basically loading the place up with programmers and computers and desks and chairs. That takes a year. So imagine how long it's going to take to build an entire assembly factory. And under the way that America ends up doing things is you got to get this approval, you got to get that approval. But don't worry, Trump said, we will push it through quickly for you. You know what that means? That means there's going to be a lot of cost cutting. There's going to be a lot of corner cutting, and the machinery probably won't even work. There's guardrails that are put up here. And that's the whole point. There are guardrails. Fine, build plants here. No problem. Like what Joe Biden wanted to do. Build manufacturing, build chips plants. Sure. But you got to do it in a way that when the plant is finally open, that it's profitable and that the machinery operates the way it's supposed to. Otherwise, what are you doing? We're just bullshitting ourselves. So now your cars are going to be more expensive. Why? Because aluminum and steel and everything else coming in. What if the leather, hypothetically, is coming in from Argentina? What if the leather is coming in from Mexico? Now you have additional tax on that. What about the aluminum or the steel that's used for the chassis or for the doors or what have you? What about the plastics? All of that is going to be taxed. And again, when Ben and I kept saying it again and again and again and again and again, the consumer is the one who will ultimately pay the price.
I'll make it even simpler. How about this? Donald Trump negotiated, even though I don't think he really did, the main agreement that governed the trade relationship with the United States, Canada, and Mexico, right? It was called the USMCA, United States, Mexico, Canada Agreement. What existed before that was NAFTA in the mid-90s. Donald Trump wanted to do a rebrand, so it was basically NAFTA with a few other elements, but Donald Trump was the one who was responsible for USMCA. That was the deal. So I just want everybody to realize that when Donald Trump's out there saying we're getting screwed. This is so unfair. I don't want you to get distracted from we're operating under Donald Trump's USMCA deal to begin with. So he makes the deal that he goes, it's so brilliant. It's the most brilliant deal I've ever made. And now his whole point is that we're getting screwed based upon that deal. By the way, the USMCA also has dispute resolutions as part of the deal that Donald Trump negotiated. So if you were upset about the way you were being treated by Mexico or Canada, there's a process for that Donald Trump negotiated. But fundamentally, let me connect it to this. Donald Trump is a deal breaker, not a deal maker. He spent for most people, when you enter a contract, you abide by it. And because people have both morals and senses of legal obligations, you feel bad or you try not to breach your agreements, right? So Donald Trump, his entire career, was an agreement breacher. He violates his agreements. He puts fake numbers on his things. It's all a lie. It's all a fraud. That's who he is. So that's what he does in international relations, where now the stakes are a little bit different than 40 Wall Street, okay? When you're dealing with Canada, Mexico, Russia, Ukraine, Gaza, when you start breaking your international deals and alliances. One more point, and then I'll toss it to you. What's the ultimate contract, though, that we have in the United States of America? It's called the United States Constitution, right? And the Constitution is like a contract. It's a contract between government and we, the people, and the branches of government of how people conduct themselves. And there are a series of norms and good faith, the same way there are in contracts, built around our Constitution. But Trump just views pieces of paper as just that, something that he can throw away easily and dispose of, while ignoring that it holds together a complex social fabric or economic fabric that without which people's lives are destroyed. So I want you to see the dynamics here. And it's why no matter what he does or says, you can never trust a deal. He's not an honest broker of anything. Let me just show you this clip right here where he talks about Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell, now who's no longer running for re-election, could have stood up to Donald Trump and allowed for the impeachment to result in a conviction. But McConnell's like, hey, we've got a deal or something's deeper is going to happen here. We'll let the criminal courts deal with that because I have good faith belief in the Supreme Court or whatever McConnell. Or McConnell would just, always appease Donald Trump. Well, here's Donald Trump from today saying that he doesn't even believe that McConnell really ever had polio and that's rigged. It's rigged when McConnell says he had polio. Here, play this clip.
Mitch endorsed me, right?
Well, he did.
You think that was easy? What?
He had polio, obviously, and
I don't know. I don't know anything about he had polio. He had polio.
Are you doubting that he had polio?
I have no idea if he had polio. All I can tell you about him is that he shouldn't have been leader. He knows that. He voted against Bobby. He votes against almost everything now. He's a very bitter guy, and we have a very strong party, and he's almost not even really a very powerful member. I'd say he's not he's lost his power, and it's affected his vote. And it's one of those things. But in the meantime, Bobby did great, got more votes than anybody thought, and I think he's going to do just phenomenally in that position.
Cohen, let me ask you to give the 2-finger salute and your rant of the day.
Yeah. So I actually received a DM from one of our brigaders from Cheyenne who turned around and said to me, I think that you should give the 2-finger salute to the Republicans, to the Senate Republicans who actually approved, for example, Tulsi Gabbard, who approved and confirmed RFK Jr. We are now sitting in a situation where vaccinations that have been proven effective, like the vaccination for polio, And to turn around and to say that Mitch McConnell, who has been very vocal about his bout with polio, by the way, Congressman Steve Cohen had polio as a child too, exceptionally painful. That's basically been eradicated over the last 50 plus years. Who in their right mind goes ahead and says, I have polio. I had polio as a child and so on, as if that's what, some sort of a bragging right? Right? And for Trump to turn around and to dismiss it and praise RFK Jr. Yes, we'll all say that our food has too much, it's processed, too much processing, too much sugar, too much this, too much dyes. Okay, we'll grant that. But when you start talking about things like vaccinations, the fact that children are now dealing with autism because of the pounds and pounds of drugs that are being shoved into their veins at an early age, it's bullshit. Scientifically and medically, it has been determined to be bullshit. And so my two-finger salute goes to these Senate members, these Republican Senate members who are so fucking feckless and they're spineless in the fact that they're, oh my God, well, what if Elon Musk has somebody run against me? Fuck you. It's not about you. It's about America and our democratic republic. Now, since I'm now finished with my rant, I do, however, Ben, want to share a very funny story that happened to me the other night. I was out for dinner with 3 friends of mine, 2 from out of town, one's here in the city. So 4 of us got together. We actually went to a restaurant called Minetta Tavern, and they're really known for their burgers, and their food is just spectacular. And I'm sitting down with them and just having a fun old time. And who walks in and sits at the table directly next to us? Alec Baldwin. And I happen to know Alec, a little bit, enough for him to come over to the table to say hello to me. And when he did, so I stand up and I turn around and I said to him in my Trump voice, right, as I was introducing him to all the other folks at my table, I'm like, I just want to introduce you to my very dear friend, Alec Trump Baldwin. And he turned around and just started laughing his ass off. And he just asked, how am I doing? And I thought it was a very kind thing, to say. It was a lot of fun. And I said to him, look, like everybody else, we're all suffering. And that's why, my friends, Brigaders, Midas Touch Network, it's where you need to go to get your news. We need to remain as this massive community growing to 4 million, from 4 to hopefully, God willing, quickly we get to 5 million. And after that to 10 million, because that's how elections will be decided, by having not state-run news like Fox News or OAN or Newsmax, right? Not by having even like the way that so many at CNN or MSNBC are now capitulating because they don't want to get tossed out, or they don't want to not be able to get an interview with Trump. No. What we need to do is raw, unfiltered truth. And sometimes you like what I say, sometimes you won't. But it will always be the truth. And I'll always back it up with facts. And that's why I turn around and I say to you, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for being a part of this community and helping us to grow all the various different properties here, whether it's my Mea Culpa podcast. That's the one with the blue icon background. If not, join us on Patreon. We have to do Patreon. All right. We have to do Patreon. I know Ben has been beyond busy, myself as well. Please also, if you're on Substack, join us. Midas has a Substack. I have one under the real Michael Cohen. Just be a part of the community. Be a part of all of the communities. In that way, when the time comes, and it's coming, I promise you, it's coming. 2026 midterm elections, that's where the time is going to come. And that's where we're going to really need to show that you can. It's such a shame that he managed to bullshit so many Americans, but when it starts hitting them in their pocket too, that's when things change. So
Remind everybody about the Mea Culpa Blue audio podcast. So wherever you get your audio podcast, check it out. Mea Culpa Blue. Make sure you subscribe to @The Michael Cohen Show YouTube channel. You see right there, patreon.com/Political Beatdown. You see Michael Cohen's got his plaque right there, although he's soaring past that number. I'll remind everybody, as of this moment, we have less than 2,000 subscribers needed for us to hit 4 million subscribers on the Midas Touch YouTube channel. So one way you can help, I suppose, if you're already subscribed, send this YouTube video, send our Political Beatdown live to anybody you know right when we finish, and then ask them to subscribe to the channel. Also, we've got a new video that is loaded on the Midas Touch YouTube channel. It's playing right now. So as soon as this ends, just go to the main YouTube page, click that video. It's going crazy viral. We talk about what went down in the Oval Office before, and make sure you watch that as soon as this ends. Just go there. Michael Cohen, always a pleasure. We got the Brother Show tonight as well.
Patreon.
Patreon.com/Political Beatdown. Then we've got the Brother Show at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific tonight. Thanks, Cohen. Thanks, Brigaders. Thanks, Midas Mighty. We'll see you soon. Thanks for watching. Shout out to the Midas Mighty.